There's a moment, somewhere in the desert heat of Dubai, where a phone rings inside one of the wealthiest households on earth. Nobody outside that room knows what's said. But within weeks, a mechanic from Leicester, a man who once broke his shoulder on a BMX track and never touched a wrench professionally until his 20s, becomes the answer to a question the richest family in the Middle East didn't even know how to ask out loud. Not Bugatti. Not Ferrari. Not one of the billion-dollar names that spend fortunes chasing royal attention. Him. And by the time you understand why, you'll realize this was never really about a car at all. Start with the family, because the scale here is almost impossible to overstate. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum doesn't just run Dubai, he built it, piece by impossible piece. Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE, a personal fortune sitting near $18 billion, and that number is just the surface, because underneath it sits an empire of state-owned assets nobody's even trying to count. This is the man who said yes to the Burj Khalifa when the world called it fantasy. The man who greenlit islands shaped like palm trees, visible from space, when engineers said it couldn't be done. The man who turned an airline into one of the most profitable in aviation history. When this family moves, they don't test the waters. They don't pilot anything. They commit, fully, immediately. And in November 2025, they committed to something enormous, the Dubai auto market. 1,500 showrooms, a full-scale global auction house, workshop zones stretching across a convention center, warehousing, even a hotel, all tied into DP World's 77 ports across the planet, engineered to push through 800,000 vehicles every single year. Car sales in the UAE are expected to nearly double by 2030, and this facility was built to sit right in the eye of that storm. Everything was in place: the land, the capital, the political will. Everything except the one thing that can't be poured, built, or bought: attention. And that's where the story gets dangerous. Because here's what nobody in Dubai's boardrooms expected. The man who could deliver that attention wasn't even trying to reach them. He didn't start in cars. He started on a BMX bike, chasing sponsorships that barely covered his flights, until one qualifying run at the World Championships in Germany ended it all in a single dislocated shoulder. Just like that. Gone. He went back to the only thing he actually knew: his father's garage, the sound of engines, the language of things going wrong. He bartended. He delivered food. He worked retail shifts nobody remembers. And in 2013, almost as an afterthought, he started a YouTube channel that went absolutely nowhere for years. Then his girlfriend's Audi TT got wrecked, and instead of walking away like everyone else would, he bought the wreck back from the insurance company and pointed a camera at it. No polish. No hiding the failures. Every wrong turn left in. And something happened that nobody, including him, saw coming. People didn't just watch. They came back. Again. And again. The Audi became a Bentley. The Bentley became something far bigger. And then, in 2020, while the entire planet sat locked inside their homes with nothing to do but scroll, a British man fixing luxury wrecks in a modest garage became one of the most watched things on the internet. By early 2026, he'd crossed 6.3 million subscribers. But none of that, not the subscribers, not the views, not even the years of quiet grinding, prepared anyone for what happened next. Because he was about to pick a fight with a company that doesn't lose. He bought a wrecked Bugatti Chiron Per Sport, one of only 60 ever built on Earth. Front end destroyed, airbags deployed, the horseshoe grille shattered beyond recognition. A Bugatti technician flew in from France, inspected the wreckage, and declared it dead. Total loss. Insurance paid out, the salvage title hit the auction block, and that should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Because Bugatti did something they had never, not once, done before. They locked the VIN, a hard restriction. No dealership on the planet, anywhere in the world, would be allowed to supply a single part for that chassis number again. Ever. And then the CEO went public, warning that the car was too structurally compromised, too dangerous, that the only place capable of touching it was Bugatti's own factory floor in Molsheim, France. Every manufacturer watching braced for the story to end there. It didn't. He flew straight to Miami. And in a private workshop, with cameras rolling and absolutely no guarantee of success, he did the one thing Bugatti swore only 2 facilities in the world could survive. He split the Chiron's chassis clean in half, welded the transmission mount back into position with his own hands, found compatible airbags of all places from an Audi A3, watched a collaborator spend 60 hours hand-fabricating a crash bar that didn't exist anywhere else on Earth because the original simply couldn't be sourced, rebuilt all 10 of the Chiron's custom radiators from scratch, And then, holding both halves of a car, Bugatti's own CEO called unfixable, he bolted them back together with 14 titanium bolts and turned the key. It started, on camera, in real time, with the whole internet watching to see if he'd fail. He didn't stop there, and that should terrify anyone still betting against him. There was a second Bugatti, a Veyron, sourced through a repossession company, built specifically for Dubai's own roads. Bugatti refused parts again. The gearbox fault came back with a repair estimate of $350,000. He found the real problem. A single blown fuse. $3. He'd just beaten a $2 million hypercar's own manufacturer with a part you'd find in a hardware store. Then came Ferrari. A 296 GTB out of Cyprus, crashed and completely dead because of a hybrid battery controller locked behind Ferrari's proprietary system. Ferrari blocked every parts order, shut every channel. Months passed. Thousands of dollars burned chasing dead ends. And then, only then, after watching him refuse to quit, Ferrari finally caved. 3 of the biggest manufacturers on the planet tried to stop one man in a garage in Leicester. All 3 failed. And here's the part that should keep you up at night. Every single failure made him bigger. But there's a twist buried inside all of this that almost nobody noticed until it was already too late to call a coincidence. Dubai has always had a strange, almost reckless relationship with expensive cars. In most cities, a wrecked supercar quietly disappears into an insurance claim and vanishes. In Dubai, they pile up. Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, abandoned at the airport, left in car parks by owners for whom replacing a 6-figure car is nothing more than a minor inconvenience. That created one of the strangest, richest salvage ecosystems on the planet, and the moment Bugatti's VIN restriction closed his original path, this is exactly where he flew next. Rows of wrecked Bentleys, repossessed Rolls-Royces, abandoned exotics nobody wanted, sitting under the desert sun. One car stopped him cold, a Ford GT, one of only 1,350 ever built, worth over $750,000, sitting on the Dubai auction block with an opening bid of just $150,000. But here's the detail that changes everything. The detail that turns this whole story on its head. That Bugatti Veyron he'd already bought in Florida? It had been built specifically for Dubai, driven on Dubai's roads, repossessed in the very city that was about to become the automotive capital of the world. It had already made a journey nobody designed, from Dubai, to a Florida repo lot, to his workshop, and back into this story. He had already been inside Dubai's automotive world long before Dubai ever knew his name. Which brings us to the problem that $18 billion simply cannot solve. On paper, the Dubai auto market is flawless. The capital is there. The infrastructure is staggering. DP World's logistics network already moves 10% of all global automotive trade. The timing couldn't be sharper, with UAE car sales projected to nearly double by 2030. And still, none of it matters, because attention refuses to behave like infrastructure. You cannot commission it. You cannot build it into a blueprint. You cannot force 6 million people across the world to suddenly care about a warehouse, no matter how extraordinary that warehouse is. A project can be financially bulletproof and strategically perfect and still collapse into silence if nobody's telling its story. And that is exactly the gap the Al Maktoum family found themselves staring into. A stage without a performer. So picture the stakes now, because they're about to get higher than anything this man has ever faced. Every previous build happened on his terms, in his own workshop, with pressure he could control. If parts were late, filming paused. If something broke, the world simply waited. This would be different. This would mean walking into a 22 million square foot facility tied to 77 ports worldwide, backed by one of the most powerful families on Earth. Watched by an entire industry trying to read exactly where the future of car culture is heading. No quiet corner to fix a mistake. No pause button. Every angle exposed, every setback visible, with nowhere left to hide. And if he says yes, if he walks in with a wrecked hypercar from their own auction house and lets the cameras roll without cutting away from a single failure, he won't just finish another rebuild. He'll turn an empty, breathtaking piece of infrastructure into something the entire world suddenly can't stop watching. Bugatti tried to shut him out. Ferrari tried to block him. Neither one could touch the one thing that actually matters here. An audience that already believes him completely, built one visible failure at a time, with nothing hidden and no safety net underneath. That's the one asset money has never been able to buy. And now the richest family in the Middle East is waiting on his answer. The only question left is whether he picks up the phone.